big news from an NFL insider this week. Peter King was talking on 93.7 The Fan. He said that he believes the Pittsburgh Steelers should bring in some competition for Kenny Pickett during the NFL draft. We talked about Jaden Daniels as a possibility. We kind of decided collectively that Justin Fields might be a better option than Jaden Daniels if those opportunities presented itself. He's saying a first-round pick. He named a guy like Bo Nix as a possibility for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Two questions here for you. If you're the Pittsburgh Steelers and you only have one first-round pick, are you spending it on a quarterback? Are you considering spending it on the quarterback? And do you think that the quarterback options where the Steelers sit are going to be good enough to kind of like, I don't know, move the bar a little bit or teeter the whatever the tot or whatever the thing is, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I
get you. Tip the scales.
Tip the scales, thank you, on enough to warrant the move.
So I think I don't hate the idea of taking a quarterback at all. But I think the first round would be a little early, especially considering how deep this quarterback class is. Like, when you think about the difference between, I don't know, like, take your pick of random quarterbacks who are going to maybe go in the first round. Like right now, it's like, I mean, I've seen Penix in there. I've seen Jaden Daniels get a lot of shine recently after he won the Heisman. Bo Nix, a guy you mentioned. Like, the difference between guys like that versus a Quinn Ewers or a Carson Beck or a J.J. McCarthy, like, how different is it, you know? And so I think if you're the Steelers, if you are also, I mean, look, if we're full blown, you know, Kenny's not the guy and we've got to panic and we don't feel like we have a franchise quarterback, then by all means go for it in the first round. Take your home run swing on a quarterback there because you need it if you don't think Kenny's the guy. But if you think Kenny even has the potential to be a serviceable starter, then I think you wait until the second or maybe even the third, because this is just such a quality quarterback draft class that you can afford to wait a little bit, in my opinion, and still get a guy who's competent and then get a guy who can win you some games and be a good starter for you. So unless unless we're really hitting the panic button on this whole thing, if we're firing Mike Tomlin and we're getting rid of Kenny Pickett, we don't think that either of those guys are it, then yeah, let's take a swing on Jaden Daniels or something at pick whatever 15, 11, 12, wherever the Steelers end up. But for right now, given where they stand, and I'm someone who's not completely out on Kenny Pickett yet, so I'm saying if you are drafting a quarterback, it's got to be depth. It's got to be competition. It's not necessarily taking a swing on a guy that you think is going to be an actual franchise quarterback. And you're not, you know, I don't think you introduce that kind of, you know, I don't think you may, I don't know. I don't think you use that kind of draft capital unless you think that you need a franchise quarterback and that you can get one in that first round.
I agree. I don't think that you're bringing in a first-round guy, especially a top 15, top 20 pick, and saying, well, you know, worst-case scenario, this guy spends his career behind Kenny Pickett. That's like, that's worse than drafting Kenny Pickett. That's as bad as it gets. Like, it's okay to admit that Kenny isn't the guy after you gave him an opportunity. It's not okay to have two first-round quarterbacks sitting there competing with each other and saying, well, there's a possibility that the guy we drafted higher than Kenny Pickett, after we realized Kenny Pickett might not be it, is also not the guy. That would be worst case scenario for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, again, if Kenny comes back at the end of the season and the Steelers make the playoffs, and in those last two games, Kenny looks atrocious, and in those two games, you just make the decision, it's over, we're not going to stick with Kenny Pickett this offseason, then you draft a first-round quarterback and you feel just fine. But like you said, this draft is so deep. You could find a Michael Penix. You can make a move up. You know what I mean? Like if you have a guy in mind, that guy is there in the top of the second round or in the early portions of the second round, go up and get him. Like, you know, it's not that hard to move up after the first round. You could make that move to go get a quarterback if you want to, or you could sit around and just draft somebody that you feel is competent enough to come in here and help. The Steelers have too many options, or too many issues. I think that's the biggest thing. Like, you need a right tackle, you need a center, you probably need another wide receiver somewhere, you need an inside linebacker unless Cole Holcomb and Elandon Roberts and unless everybody's coming back and they're healthy, You probably need a safety. You definitely need a corner. Like, there are a lot of you need to fill these positions immediately for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Quarterback is definitely on the list. Should be very high on the list. Not worth a first round pick when you could fill a void. You know what I mean? Like, you draft a right tackle, that right tackle is your right tackle. There's no questions there. You draft a corner, that's your corner. There's no questions there. You draft a quarterback, it's like, well, we might have just wasted a first round pick, but you never know. We could get better. And then what do you do with Kenny Pickett? Like, I think that's the other side of this is if you draft a first round quarterback, everything for Kenny Pickett goes lower. Whereas if you draft a second round quarterback, Kenny Pickett's stock remains high, maybe not as high, but it remains higher than it was. And if at some point along the way you've decided Kenny is not your guy, I still think he holds some trade value to move on from. Whereas if you draft Bo Nix, you're getting remember Josh Rosen, that you're getting Josh Rosen value for Kenny Pickett, which is nothing. And at that point, that's just wasted compensation. Do you think there's a chance that if they do draft a quarterback and he beats Kenny Pickett out next season, that they actually like move on from Kenny, that they move him somewhere else?
Oh yeah. I mean, totally. Like, I mean, that feels like the kind of logical next step. Like,
yeah,
I don't know. I feel like you could get better value. You could get better value than what Kenny would bring you as a backup if you traded him. Because he still had. I mean, like, as much as we all don't really, as we've kind of been critical of Kenny Pickett at certain points, like, I think it's kind of, I think he has a better reputation outside of Pittsburgh, and I definitely think that you could find a team out there who suffers an injury to a starting quarterback and needs someone who can step in and be serviceable for them around a good team. I think that could absolutely happen. Probably should happen. I mean, if you find a new franchise quarterback, I think you got to try to maximize Kenny Pickett's value to you, and he does not hold a ton of value to you as a backup. I think that's kind of a little bit of a waste. Not only like a waste of his talents, quite honestly. Like I said, like I'm not as out on Kenny Pickett as maybe some other people are. But I think he doesn't really give you anything. Like you invested too much in him for him to be a backup. Like if he's not going to start for you, then you gotta get rid of him, and you gotta get some better value for him that way.
Guys, we have gear. New merchandise from AST to Muth, Bleed Black and Gold, Kenny to George, and plenty of others now at our new website, blackandgoldapparel.com. And the coolest part, 50% of all profits at our store go to UPMC Children's Hospital here in Pittsburgh to make sure that we are giving back. We can't thank you guys enough, and we want to show you guys how thankful and how grateful we are for everything by making sure that we do our part to make the community here in Pittsburgh better. Go check out everything. We tried to make everything new and improved, from our designs to our quality of sweatshirts and t-shirts and everything else. Let us know and check everything out at blackandgoldapparel.com. And as always, thank you guys for everything. I think Kenny's a good guy. I don't think Kenny would ever be an issue in the locker room, but I also don't think that, like, morale-wise, it's good, especially for a guy who you see miss open wide receivers, who you've seen lack confidence on a football field in his decision-making. It's not going to be great to bench him and then one day have to rely on him and say, all right, Kenny, go ahead. Go see what you like.
We believe in you, buddy. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, like, I just don't think that works out in that situation. It's better to just go get a veteran and say, all right, well, like, this guy's expectation, go get Tyrod Taylor and say, worst case scenario, you're in there and you'll be just fine. Or like Jacoby, a career backup who doesn't hold that bar, because I think then Kenny, like, it starts to, and then, it becomes a giant question mark. To go full circle here before we head out, Washington Commanders call. They hold the 4th pick in the draft, okay? Washington Commanders call. They say, hey, we want Mike Tomlin. We'll give you a first and a second next year. You say, all right, the Steelers hold a top 15 pick, whatever. Are you taking that? And this is during the draft, okay? During the draft. Caleb Williams goes first. Let's see what the draft order looks like right this very second. The draft order.
I believe it's Patriots
are at second. Okay, so they're taking a quarterback.
Drake May, baby.
Let's say the Bears do not, okay? Say the Bears don't take a quarterback. Number 2, New England Patriots, whoever they pick. Number 3, Arizona Cardinals don't take a quarterback. Let's say best case scenario for the Pittsburgh Steelers happen. They're sitting there at 4, either Drake May or Caleb Williams sitting on the board for these guys. Washington Commanders call you. Hey, we want Mike Tomlin. We'll give you this. We'll give you the 4th pick and next year's 2nd. Done deal. Are you taking that pick and drafting Caleb Williams / Drake May, or are you going a different direction?
I mean, if Caleb Williams or Drake May are there, I mean, those I feel like are, obviously don't expect them to be there, but those are like game-changing offensive talents, I feel like. So, franchise cornerstone type guys. So, I mean, shoot, even if they aren't there, I would take this deal. Like, I don't know, like, I don't know that I don't think it's dependent on whether or not a quarterback is there. I mean, I would take Drake May or Caleb Williams. I feel like would be pretty obvious upgrades over Kenny Pickett, but
are you drafting a quarterback in that situation though? Like, say one of the does that remove all question of Kenny Pickett competition, blah blah blah? Like, if that scenario presents itself, is it all right? It's over. Tomlin, Kenny, done. This is a new era of Pittsburgh Steelers football. Welcome Drake May and new head coach Bill Belichick. Not actually, but
Yeah, no, I get what you're saying. I mean, I don't hate that. I mean, I think you'd have to know what the rest of the roster looks like. Like, man, this is tough. Right. Because, I mean, still, like, throwing Drake May behind that line or throwing Caleb Williams behind that line, like, is not ideal either. And you
still got a 1st-round pick. You still have, like, your 1st-round pick.
Yeah, I'm probably considering. Yeah, I fine. I'll throw myself into it. I'll say yes. I feel like that's too sweet of a deal to pass up to get a 4th overall pick on top of a 15th overall pick, and maybe give yourself a fresh start and a hard reset that this organization. I don't know if they need it, but I don't think it could hurt them, quite honestly. Yep. So yeah, I'm gonna say yes. I'm gonna plant my flag. I'm gonna say yes. I would take that deal.
I 100% agree with you. If Washington calls, and Washington's only a game back from like the Patriots, I believe, and the Cardinals. You sit there, you know what I mean? You somehow climb your way to 2, 3. Washington calls, hey, look, we want Mike Tomlin. Yeah, cool. Sounds good, pal. There, see ya. We appreciate all the work. We'll figure it out from here. You get one of those quarterbacks. You trade Kenny Pickett immediately. I wish both these guys all the best in this situation, but you trade Kenny Pickett immediately. You see if you could get a 2nd-round pick for the guy, or maybe a 3rd, and then boom, you just stack everywhere else as much as you can throughout the rest of the draft around your new quarterback. Yeah, no, I'm feeling pretty all right about that. And I think if you told 100 Steelers fans, 80 of them would be like, you're nuts if you don't take that deal. So, I mean, if you told 100 Washington fans, 100 of them say, we'll take Mike Tomlin immediately. So 2 sides of the coin, but I'm all in on that move, 100%.